pathways to the middle class, and it's all the, all the narrative is about, well, get a better job, and you can afford more housing. No, we value public housing because we believe housing is a human right. We believe that our public land and public resources should go towards housing, just like education, to make sure that everybody in our city has a home, and we know that that benefits everybody. We know right now there's over 6,000 children enrolled in schools that are homeless. And many of those families are going to have a very difficult time exiting homelessness just into the private rental market, right, for various reasons. So that's another important reason why we need public housing. So I want to introduce Kenny, who's our newest organizer at Empower DC and has been working on a public housing campaign, and they're going to give us a presentation on that, and I can just do the... Yeah, I had it turned.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You can try to push it over. I push it over.
Is there a way to get it low? Sorry.
Do you want to sit here?
Yeah, would you? Would it be okay?
Sure.
It'll probably be better.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenny. I'm going to try to keep this short because it's a lot of numbers too. If you have questions, they can always email me or talk to me later. This is just a quick timeline of what's been going on with the DC Housing Authority. So as most people probably know, last year they did a lead assessment, right, and basically came to the conclusion that we already knew that 14 properties were literally, they called it uninhabitable, right, with lead, with mold, broken windows, right, just like lack of actual repairs for the housing. And so in January 2019, DCHA passed a resolution allowing, the board passed a resolution allowing DCHA to begin the process of repositioning. So that's just a fancy word of basically meaning privatization. So that means moving homes from the public housing sector. Oh, okay. And so throughout the year, DCHA has been holding these community meetings at the different properties to talk to residents. Since I've joined Empower, I've gone to a few. They've also had general like east of the river and west of the river meetings. But far and few in between. Of course, I've been doing outreach, talking to residents. Not everyone knows about the meetings. It might be, folks have kids, they're not really providing accessible ways for folks to be able to engage with DCHA about their plan. So a few weeks ago, back in August, DCHA released a draft of their 20-year plan. They call it Our Plan, Our People, Our Portfolio. It's 131 pages. And so the board was supposed to review and vote on the plan this past, last week. But there's been so much pushback from folks, right? We've been able to get them to extend the comment period so folks can provide some input, because comments are virtually useless after a vote, which is what they were trying to do in September. And so it's supposed to be on the docket for their next board meeting in October, which is going to be at Woodland Terrace. And if the board reviews it, by December, DCHA is planning to file for Section 18 demo dispose property by property. And so the timeline is projected that the whole relocation process will probably begin around this time next year.
I just want to say the second to last page in your packet has some of this information on it, so you might follow that.
So what exactly is Section 18 demo dispo? Basically, properties will be removed from the public housing program and demolished or sold. And so the Section 18 does not give vouchers. After that, that is how they're going to request for tenant protection vouchers to relocate residents. And so I listed the properties that are that they slated that they're going to apply for Section 18 application. So Benning, Garfield, Greenleaf, Kelly Miller, Richardson, Stoddard, or DuPont, and Woodland.
They going to demolish all of Woodland?
Yeah. Yeah, so the plan goes more specifically about like what units need to be demolished, what will be rehabilitated. If you have specific questions, I can, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I've looked into it. So these properties have been slated to go through rental demonstration assistance, which is called RAD. So basically, it would move public housing units into Section 8. And typically, the new owner and management will be a for-profit developer. So that includes Judiciary House, Garfield Senior, Kelly Miller, and LeDroit Senior, and Langston Terrace. So with RAD, there's supposedly rights that folks have, right? Right to remain and return, opportunity to object, permanent relocation, and one big concern, right, is being rescreened, right? Folks who owe rent, folks who have poor credit, making sure that they're still able to find housing, and they're supposed to have a written relocation plan. We know that that's typically violated, and so I pulled this from the National Law Housing Project. Common violations are not allowing tenants to return, rescreening and denying eligibility, not having accessible units, no payments for folks to help them move, and then when people have a problem, not giving the procedures, and also refusing the rent to families with children. So here's just some risks with vouchers that I'm sure folks are aware of. So tenant protection vouchers have a 6-month lifespan. So once they kick you out, essentially you have 6 months to use your voucher to find housing. And these are federal vouchers, so hypothetically, you can look outside of DC. But again, people are subject to new screening and criteria. There's not enough housing out there. DCHA has estimated that they're looking to relocate 400 families per year. So that's an additional 400 folks in the market looking for housing, right? And another big concern is when you remove public housing, right, that creates barriers for new folks to be able to find low barrier housing. As we know, developers will look into your credit and your rental history, and it leads to displacement. So according to their plan, on the left are the properties that they plan to work on first. Benning Terrace is supposed to be the very first one that they're looking to demolish, and then on 6 to 10 years are the other properties.
Wait, can you hold it right there?
Yeah.
I knew they were coming for the city
You know they
first.
coming for everything.
They were gonna- I knew that was going to
Everything.
happen.
Everything.
Yeah.
Seem to be just
And this is a pretty robust plan. We don't see this happening like,
Because it's people that live in these places.
right,
Don't even
No,
know this is
definitely.
going on.
definitely.
So, yeah, we
During
gonna-
our meetings, every
Yeah, so I
month.
just went out to Benning last week. We've been talking to folks at Langston, Langston being a historical landmark. Things are going to move a little differently, but they still will be removed from public, as public housing. So I can go into the individual properties. It gets really wonky with the numbers, so I might just go through this quickly. But if you're familiar with Benning, right, they're looking to do a phased redevelopment with the cul-de-sac first, then the field, and then the townhouses. They're looking to be modernized. So I put together these graphs for each property because the numbers get really, really confusing. So let me just explain like what these graphs mean. So on the right, you have the current breakdown of units. So you have 58 2-bedroom units, 172 3-bedroom, 22 4-bedroom, 21 5-bedroom, and 1 6-bedroom unit. So the blue is their proposed new unit breakdown, right? So you see that they're not replacing the 6-bedroom. The 4 and 5 are more or less the same, but they're going to increase with 2 and 3 bedrooms. And that's something redevelopers have said, right? Because of the expense of the projects, they want to create higher density within these neighborhoods, right? And create more units that aren't necessarily going to be for 0 to 30% AMI. So this is the mixed income model that they're talking about. So there are 4 different types of units. So there's ACC units, which is public housing units. None of those are going to exist anymore. Wow. Then you have RAD units, right, which is what I talked about, where folks have those certain rights within those units. And then there are also project-based voucher units. So those units are slated for 0, you pay 30% of your income within those units. The other one is called LIHTC, Low Income Housing Tax Credit. And so if you have a voucher, you can use it to live in a LIHTC unit and pay 30% of your income, but that is not their threshold. So LIHTC units can go up to 50 to 60% AMI. And so we believe, obviously, if a developer finds someone who can pay 60%, they're going to go with that over the vouchers, right? Those who might not be making anything or making less. And so that's where the different colors are. So the lighter blue is to indicate LIHTC units that can be used as 0 to 30% AMI, but we know that that's not likely given the nature of for-profit developers. So similarly to Stoddard, they have 3 phases that they planning to move forward. They're going to look at the 82 units, incorporate new units. A lot of their new buildings are also high-rises, right? So this isn't even like in-depth detail about what these buildings look like. And we know that families might not want to live in high-rises, right? And that's inaccessible for a lot of seniors and folks with disabilities. And so this is the breakdown for Stoddard. You see that there are no 5-bedroom units. They plan to not replace any of those. And they're pretty much doubling the amount of 4-bedroom units, which is not helpful if you need 5 bedrooms. So this is Garfield Terrace. Garfield Terrace is going through a Section 18 demo dispo, and then the seniors are doing a RAD rehabilitation in that section. And so as you can see, it's mostly 1-bedrooms, and about half of them are going to be LIHTC units, meaning, again, what I said about that higher threshold for AMI. So length is a little different, like I said, because it's historical. They are doing a 1-for-1 replacement, so the unit breakdown does remain the same, and they're going to do it in 3 phases. So that's a little bit more into their plan. But again, with the breakdown, right, only the dark blue are going to be RAD and project-based voucher units, and everything else is going to be LIHTC. So it looks like it's the same, right? So when we talk about 1-for-1 replacement, we also need to be very specific about what AMI, right, these units are designated for. So Richardson is also a 3-phase redevelopment, and that's the breakdown. There are no 1-bedrooms right now, and they're going to build 130 of those. So, I'm sure everyone knows that means they targeted a different population than the existing neighborhood. So Greenleaf's a little different, and I personally don't know too much about it. I don't know if Chris can speak more about it, but they do have a build-first strategy, which we think is a pretty good idea in general of building buildings before you tear them down to house folks. And then Judiciary is also a RAD. So Judiciary is the one where there won't need to be any long-term relocation. They imagine only 30-day intervals for maintenance and construction to happen.
Where is that located?
I think it's in Ward 2.
Yeah.
Sorry. So with Kelly Miller and LaJoy, like I said, the walk-ups, the affordable, right, what we're talking about, what is affordable, is up to 60% AMI. And there's actually going to be just blanket market units there, right? So you're definitely mixing the neighborhood with white folks, probably with more money. And that is the breakdown for Kelly Miller. Yeah, so as you can see, they're building more units than what's existing now, again, to up the density. Woodland Terrace is also going through 3 phases. And I know someone mentioned Woodland, so here's the breakdown. They're not replacing 5 and 6 bedrooms. It's mostly 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. So that's kind of the breakdown. I know that was really quick. It was kind of a summary of 131 pages. So what we've been doing is doing outreach, probably for folks who are slated for the 0 to 5 years first, right? Folks who are facing that sooner. And so the board has monthly meetings. So like I said, at the October one, they're supposed to put up this repositioning resolution up for a vote. It's going to be at Woodland. And then they also have November and December meetings. This is also on the packet you have. And so what we've been doing is we've been starting these like power meetings of citywide tenant outreach. So we're meeting the first week, so basically the week before the board meetings. We're getting folks together to talk more about what's happening. I know I talked to one Woodland resident who this happened when they moved her out of Highland, and now they're moving her again. So with RAD, right, like I said, you don't have to take a voucher. But what they're going to do then is to relocate you to another public housing unit that may or may not stay public. And then they might move that public housing family into, they're going to find someone who will take that voucher. And so it's this big...
Who authorized this is what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, did they talk to the people or they just decided this without some other notice or what?
Yeah, so this is a larger HUD plan that Ben Carson has been looking into. This isn't happening just in D.C. I've been looking into it. This is happening in Minneapolis, Miami, San Francisco, Texas. Generally, they're just
I need to know who door we can go knock on.
Right.
And questions about this.
Yeah, so the director of DCHA is Mr. Tyrone Garrett. He's been around for about 2 years now. And like I said, they've been having these meetings, but folks don't know about them.
Exactly.
He's made people cry at the meeting. Just like he talks like a politician. Like even I'm like, that's like, I don't know, it's like he very much directs back on you when you ask a question. But we've been having these advocates meetings. So one big thing we've been advocating for is clearing people's back rent. Like, you've admitted that these conditions are terrible, and people can't leave even if they wanted to, because if they were to look for more housing in the private market, they have this poor rental history, but people are paying to live in terrible conditions. So kind of like, if you say what you're really trying to do is to, because DCHA is in a tricky situation where they don't have funding, right, and these conditions are really bad, but there are little things, like, not even little, right, but there are barriers that they could potentially alleviate to help smooth the process for folks.
Two questions.
Yes.
One is, why can't they get local funding? And then the second question is actually, how much disrepair level is Garrett saying? Because that's affecting it too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that is something we brought up with DCHA. Like, what about a local subsidy? And there are some, like, I guess there's more oversight from the city that they don't want, but they've kind of been pushing as if like this is their only choice, and they haven't been very open to us, looking for other funding. And the second question?
Oh, how much disrepair is it actually in? Because they're a landlord, right?
Right. Yeah, so they've estimated like it would cost $2 billion to fully actually renovate the units, which is about like $150,000 per unit. But yeah, this is definitely decades in the process of them only coming in for interim repairs and not actually like fixing deeper issues. Right.
I just want to mention on the local funding issue, because this is something Empower DC has been campaigning around for about 8 years now. And when we started, the city wasn't putting any money into public housing at all. So when you hear the mayor talking about, I'm putting $100 million into affordable housing, remind yourself, not a dime goes to the city's really only permanently and truly affordable housing, which is public housing, not a dime. So then we started saying to the city, okay, you need to put some local money in. I think the first year we literally got $1 million. and then it became about 15 million, then it became about 19 million, and then you saw the big fight this last year, which resulted in about, I think, 25 million, where they took some money from